What's up guys, Ruppy here bringing you my team builder for my week 4 game in the SAPL as my Columbus Swoo look to keep our unbeaten ways alive and keep a firm grip on the Ula Ula division in our conference as we step outside our division for the very first time starting with this week. We aren't going to be getting back to that till near the end of the season, so plenty of time for things to change there. But in the meantime, we begin our foray, wow, I cannot talk today, into other places within the league, starting with a clash with the Gary Southshore Raikous, coached by Blade, who happens to be the guy in charge of this particular league. So, good to know there. I'm playing the boss yet again. Why does it always seem to be an occurrence whenever I... Never mind. Anyway. So, you can see his team off to the right there, and it was actually a rather tough team to crack. I'm also going to just throw this out there before I really get into this team builder. I know it's going to be going up late. Just to put it bluntly, this has not been a very good week for me. Between work, some family stuff, other projects that kind of have a slowly closing time window I need to get them done by. It's just been a hectic week for me, to say the least. So, I don't know when this video is going to go up or the battle, but it will be going up, I do promise you that. So, let's just go ahead and get into his team so we can just keep this train rolling, shall we? So, his S-tier pick was Tapu Fini. I mean, I know what Tapu Fini is capable of doing. I had it on my GPL team. It's not a bad pick. It's a defensive pain to take down. Misty Terrain keeps you from statusing it or any grounded mons, of which he has all but 2. Well, technically 3 potentially, depending on what he wants to do with another mon. Tapu Fini can be a bit of a pain, depending on what he wants to do with it. He could set up screens with it. He could just go pure defensive. He could potentially try to run a calm mindset. There's a number of different things he could do with Fini. Victini was the big problem child in trying to build for this game, because I am a guy who knows Victini all too well. This thing was usually, at least until I started trying to branch off and looking for other things to try, Victini was always my go-to first-round draft pick, and it's not hard to see why. Victini does a lot. It is one of the most versatile mons in draft format. It may not have the deep move pool versatility that Mew does, but being a mythical Pokemon with base 100 stats across the board, Victini can easily run either physical or special, and it's got quite a moveset to be able to use both effectively. So that was part of the challenge of team building for this, trying to crack the Victini code, so to speak. Delmise can be a bit of a pain. Grass ghost type. It's his rapid spinner, his only form of hazard removal, as a matter of... Well, he technically does have another form... Well, no. Tapu Fini gets defog too, but Delmise definitely serves as a good spinner to try to keep the pressure off of having Fini defog. It hits fairly hard as well. It does a lot of the things I wanted to bring to this game, I partially reconsidered because of them not being able to handle Delmise, who I'm actually fairly certain is probably going to come, just so he doesn't have the burden of hazard removal on Fini's shoulders. Because hazards are going to be a somewhat key for me in this game. I'm going to tell you that right now. Crocodile! Do I really need to say more about this thing? I have said before in the past, Choice Scarf Crocodile is the bane of my existence. It hasn't kind of shown that yet in draft format, but just that's been more in general play. But Crocodile can still cause me a fair sort of problems, because Intimidate weakens my physical attackers, which are going to be somewhat of another key for me to winning this game, because he has a fair amount of special bulk on his team in certain... Well, his bulk distribution is actually pretty evenly spread, but my physical attackers are the ones who have the better options of trying to handle his team. Not to mention, I really don't want items getting knocked off my team just because I'm going to need those in certain cases. Crocodile just poses some problems for me. Jolteon, I'm a bit iffy on him bringing. It does have a fairly decent matchup against some of my mons, but it's got a pretty poor matchup against some of my others, considering what I am bringing. But it is a very powerful special attacker. He can run it Choice, he can run it Life Orb. It's got a fairly nicely spread move pool. I mean, I used it on my, not too much, but I did use it on my AABL team. So I know what Jolteon's capable of. Bronzong is most likely going to be the Stealth Rock setter he brings to this game. I know Crocodile gets rocks as well, but I'm severely doubting he's going to use Crocodile as a Stealth Rocker for this game, considering all the offensive pressure I have at my disposal. So, I'm expecting him to bring Bronzong, I'm expecting him to set up rocks, I'm expecting that thing to try to pull all sorts of defensive shenanigans on me. I'm expecting him to most likely bring Levitate, just because that thing does not want to deal with any Earthquakes I could throw out, because I do have a fair amount of Earthquakers on my team. But it would be some nice tech if he ran Heat Proof, considering one other mon I'm bringing. But basically, I have the offensive pressure to capitalize on whichever ability he does not bring, and I do plan on exploiting that to deal with Bronzong, but we'll get into that in a moment. Regigigas, I'm doubtful on him bringing. I'm kind of curious as to why it... I mean, it's not a bad mon. You just have to kind of get past the whole slow start thing first. I mean, from a defensive standpoint, it is a bit challenging for me to take this thing down because it does have pretty solid defenses, which I don't believe slow start actually affects. I think that's just its offensive abilities. But that thing does have a pretty good amount of defensive bulk to be able to eat hits, which could definitely give him the opening to try to get 5 turns to pass, so that thing can become an even bigger problem. I'm not too sure if he's going to bring it. If he does, I'm really going to have to try to play around it. But Hydreigon is a mon that I'm quite concerned with him bringing. It is another potential Scarfer he could run. I really only see him running 3 potential Scarfers this game: Hydreigon, Crocodile, and Victini. The good news is, 2 of those are weak to the U-turn portion of the VoltTurn spam I have at my disposal. But honestly, of his potential Scarfers, Hydreigon's the more threatening in my opinion, just because I don't really have a lot that would appreciate taking any special hits from it. Especially Draco Meteors. I do have mons that have some special bulk to them, but I've kind of had to really customize a bit for the potential of Hydreigon, which is not a... I don't want to have to try to customize sets specifically for one particular mon. I don't like feel restricted in my when I'm trying to build a team. I like trying to blanket prep as much as possible. And Hydreigon against the team I have does not really afford me that, especially since Choice Scarf is a very likely set to outrun Mega Beedrill should I decide to bring it. Scolipede is kind of the centerpiece of his team, and the thing I really wanted to... If I did have to centralize my focus around something, that and Victini were the things I wanted to centralize around the most, simply because of the fact that Scolipede is an obvious problem. I would not be surprised to see it having Focus Sash just so it can set up Speed Boost. I would not be surprised to see him bring it just because I have a relatively fast team at my disposal, and Scolipede is an easy answer to that, provided he gets boosts up. And it does actually, if he runs an offensive set, it does do, which I don't see any reason why he wouldn't, considering we do have the speed passing ban in the league. That thing provides some obvious problems for me, because once it gets set up, especially if it gets a Swords Dance up at some point, that thing is going to be doing a lot of damage to my team, and I would really have no solid answer to it, which is an obvious problem. So, breaking that thing's sash and trying to find a way to rip it apart early is definitely the game plan. He might try to keep it in the back for later, but I need to find a way to get that thing in, break its sash, and then go to town on it before it starts getting any boosts up. His last two are Swellow and Hariyama. Hariyama's a bit of a pain just because if it runs Assault Vest, which I see no reason why he wouldn't, considering the strength of some of my special attackers. That's my voice cracks. Hariyama can eat a fair amount of hits and then proceed to fire back with knockoffs, which I've already established with Crocodile is something I don't want to be contending with. With Ice Punches for some of my flying types, which is not good. Close Combat hits me pretty hard. Hariyama just poses me a world of problems from a defensive standpoint. Swellow's an entirely different story, however. Swellow can cause me some problems, not so much from a physical standpoint, considering, how it used to be run. Considering the new toy for people is Specs Boom Burst from this thing, because it gets scrappy, and even though it has a higher attack stat, apparently this thing runs a very effective Boom Burst set, surprisingly. This thing is basically trying to be a wannabe Exploud, and I don't know how I feel about that. I do know Boom Burst actually does hit me fairly hard all across the board, so that's something I needed to keep in mind while building. So, with that out of the way, let's move on to my team, shall we? Starting with Quartz. Choice Scarf Landorus-Therian seemed like a fairly obvious choice this week, just because of the number of things it can take on. Crocodile is something you can definitely take on. I don't believe Crocodile outspeeds me. If it runs a Scarf as well, I would have to double check the speed tiers. But even still, if I get an Intimidate off on it, that's a matchup that's more in my favor than anything else, because Landorus does have the higher attack stat. Hydreigon is a bit of an issue. I just have to hope he doesn't run Scarf, or if he does, he goes Modest over Timid, because I am running Jolly Max Speed to try to outpace quite a few things. Scolipede is the thing I definitely need to deal with the most. Same with Victini, especially if he brings that thing Scarf, that might be a problem. But if he doesn't, then Landorus can just go to town on it and get rid of it before it becomes an even bigger issue. Basically, it's a pretty simple process here. Quartz comes in and basically just does what it does best. Abuses the Scarf to hit things hard, get things off the field, force some switches, remove items with knockoff, U-turn out if necessary. It's basically the standard deal you would come to expect from a Scarf Landorus-Therian at this point. Bomb Track's coming back again, just because this thing is honestly probably one of the best defensive mods I have. Running Leftovers again, just to get the extra HP back, because I need this thing to take quite a few hits in this game, I feel like. Rough Skin to help out, obviously. I'm going Stealth Rock's 3 attacks, as I'm going Impish Nature, Max Defense, Max HP, a little bit of Special Defense investment. Just because a lot of its special attackers have attacks that Bomb Track can still eat up pretty nicely, just thanks to the resistance. The plan is basically to get Rocks up as soon as possible to make sure that Scolipede is not going to be causing me any sorts of issues. And then using coverage to basically try to slowly beat down his team where applicable, while eating the hits I needed to hit and just causing problems in general. Fire Punches for the Delmise and the Bronzong, assuming he doesn't bring Heat Proof. Dragon Claw's there for Stab. I was kind of iffy on whether or not I should actually bring it, but potentially catching Hydreigon on the switch in with a Dragon Claw, if he were to go that route for whatever reason, it's too tempting to pass up, honestly. And Gunk Shot is there mostly for, the Tapu Fini more than anything else, but basically that's the general plan. Get Rocks up ASAP, and then just start wearing things down. Then, I just couldn't help it. It's laundry day once again. Going a bit of a different set this time, as compared to the past 2 weeks. I'm going a bit non-standard here for once. Running an Assault Vest, because honestly, of the things I have, Rotom-Wash is probably the best thing that could actually serve as a special defensive check to what he's got. So I'm running Assault Vest. I've only got 8 special defense EVs, so I could make sure I've got as much physical bulk as well. But those 8 special defense EVs with the boosting nature, I believe it's Calm I'm running? Yeah, it should be Calm. Plus the Assault Vest really give me a lot of openings to basically just send this thing in, eat hits from both sides, and just start wearing things down. Volt Switch, Hydro Pump, Thunderbolt, and Hidden Power Ice is my moveset, which covers pretty much the vast majority of what he could potentially bring. Either from a neutral hit or a super effective hit. It's really not going to be putting in too much work against, say, the Delmies, which might be a concern. But I do outspeed it still, because Delmies is not fast at all. So I can easily Volt Switch out on that thing, get into something that gives me a more favorable matchup, and then proceed to go from there. Moving on to my last 3 mons, I mentioned Swellow wanting to be a wannabe X-Cloud. Now, I don't know if he's actually going to bring Swellow or not, but just in case, I'm bringing Night Club regardless. Night Club, just like last week, puts a lot of pressure on him from an offensive standpoint, just by being a difficult wall breaker to really bring anything in on. Bronzong is really the only thing he's got that could potentially take Boom Bursts, but that thing's not going to appreciate eating a Fire Blast if he doesn't run Heat Proof, and even still, I am going Specs this week, so Boom Burst is just going to be able to wallop everything. Ice Beam, Fire Blast, and Surf are there for coverage if necessary, but Boom Burst is probably going to be doing most of the heavy lifting here. You probably noticed the ability, though. Yeah, I'm not going Scrappy this week, even though my opponent has a Ghost type. I am going Soundproof. I have a reason for this. I have other things that can deal with Delmies easily, and if I figure Delmies is going to come in, I can easily just Fire Blast, because there are a lot of things on his team that do not want to take a Specs Fire Blast from Night Club regardless. So I'm going Soundproof basically as tech for his Swellow should that thing surface. Because if he does run the Specs Boom Burst set, which I would figure he would, considering it does do a stupid amount of damage to me, I have an easy answer to it. It's a very easy counter because it forces him to try to lock himself into something that's not Boom Burst. Because if he Boom Bursts, I bring Night Club in, all of a sudden he's not doing any damage to me, and I can Boom Burst right back and show that Swellow why there is no substitute for the one and only X-Cloud. Kind of crazy to think how much power this mon has gotten since that move's been introduced. And especially the Scrappy ability, even though I'm not using it this game. Moving on. Archangel the Zapdos is making its return this week, and I'm running Defog this week. I'm going with the Defog set again. I'm also running Roost, Heat Wave, and Discharge. I wanted to pack Hidden Power Ice on here because of the potential of Hydreigon, but I just couldn't justify it, especially since I do have other things I think could probably deal with Hydreigon if I can get the scenario right and definitely confirm what its item is. But Discharge is there as Electric Stab and to potentially spread paralysis through his team, especially since he's probably going to try to battle me on a speed front. Heat Wave is there for things like Scolipede, Bronzong, Delmies, etc. Roost allows Archangel to get some longevity along with the leftovers. Defog is going to be vitally important this week because of the last member of my team you see down there, who I will get to in a moment. Keeping hazards off my side of the field, if possible, is going to be extremely important to basically enact the real core of my plan. Which, of course, now leads me to said last member, Talonflame. Nerf this is coming back once again. Now, I've been getting a bit of flack for not bringing Mega Beedrill very often. Simply put, I just keep running into games where I don't think it has a solid matchup. That's really all there is to it. It will come again. Relax. It will come. I mean, I haven't even brought Decidueye yet this season either, which is kind of, sad. But I'll figure that out in later weeks. Nerf This was honestly the better pick, in my opinion, of the extremely fast things that could tear through his team. For a number of different reasons. Did I seriously... Hang on a sec. Sorry about that. That must have been left over because I copied and pasted from week 1. I must have forgotten to change the ability on that, but it will be correct when it comes time to actually use the team in battle. Don't worry. But anyway, ignoring that little visual faux pas, Nerf This is basically my ace in the hole for this week. Swords Dance allows me to be able to get up to +2, which I'm running Jolly Max Speed, mostly just because of the Swellow. In case he brings that, in case I need an emergency option to outpace it if something happens with Nightclub. And basically, I mean, I would have been able to outspeed virtually his entire team, barring potential Scarfers either way. But I just wanted that little extra insurance policy. Roost is for any damage I take, mostly self-sustained damage. If I see an opening where I can roost up, I can easily get Nerf This back to full health to get back to abusing Gale Winds because of the nerf they put on at this gen. Flare Blitz is there for Bronzong, for Delmise, and as an extra attacking option if necessary. Brave Bird is obviously going to be the star of the show here, mostly because of the Fly-In EMZ. I've been criticized for not bringing a Z move the past 3 weeks. Well, let's fix that, shall we? And I can think of no better time to bust one out than in this particular game, because Fly-In EMZ turning Brave Bird into Supersonic Sky Strike, especially if I get the priority from Gale Wings, it is something that is going to be a nuke that no one on his team wants to particularly take. Except for maybe the Bronzong, but that might be... But I can easily Flare Blitz that thing. Everything else, it really doesn't want to take it. Not even Jolteon, which does technically resist it. The real kicker here is the fact that of the whole... You know the whole deal. Z-moves go through Protect, even though they only take 25% damage. If I can catch that Scolipede in a bad position, I could very easily take that thing out before he even gets a chance to set up, if I haven't already burned the Fly-In EMZ. Even still, as long as I can keep Talonflame at full health, then Brave Bird will still out-prioritize that Scolipede no matter how fast it is, and be able to take it out, which is why keeping rocks off my side of the field is going to be vitally important this week, because I'm going to need Gale Wings. I feel like I'm going to need Gale Wings in order to win this game. I'm going to just put that on the table right now. Talonflame is going to be what saves my ass this week. I'm calling it now. So, that takes care of that. I know this was a bit disjointed, but that's what happens when plans go awry and you kind of have to salvage them as best you can. Regardless, thank you guys so very much for watching. I've been Ruppy, and I'll see you guys soon for the battle. Take care, guys.